IVM.
This is Audiogyan, and I am your host, Kedar Nimkar. Welcome to a deep dive into the minds of luminaries from the Indian creative world. Today we have Nishant Choudhary with us on Audiogyan, one of the senior most product management folks whom I've worked with and is a good friend. Currently, Nishant is heading the product at Frit Tiger, previously at BookMyShow. He's from IIM Lucknow. Yeah, he's also a Vipassana sadhak, doing a lot of proactive projects globally. Welcome, Nishant, to Audiogyan. Thanks for joining in.
Hey Kedar, it's a pleasure to be here. I've looked forward to being able to contribute to the good work that you're doing. So I'm really happy to have this conversation with you.
Awesome. This is actually episode number 227. So before we begin, like just a small plug that do listen to episode number 7, which is called Nuts and Bolts of Product with Subramanya Sharma. I guess that's the only one where I did with a product guy. So yeah, let's see how this unravels. And the topic which I've kept is called blurring lines between product design and product management. So because I've been looking at some patterns where designers are actively contributing to product managers are learning Figma, so we'll just try and explore that.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating topic. And just so folks know, I've been leading product and design teams for the past 4 or 5 years. And so have had a chance to work very closely both with PMs, of course, but also with designers and at least built a point of view on how the two should interact.
Yeah, sure. So I have actually, like, before we jump to the main questions, typically I did one series called Where Are the Designers? और उसमें थोड़ा fun angle था where I did some rapid fire rounds, and I think it's a good plug or good segue to get to the main questions just as a warm up round, especially with friends. So are you ready for like a rapid fire round?
Fire away.
Awesome. So these are really random, okay? And let's see. And some of them I'll double click in the conversation later, but yeah.
Sure.
Favorite Vipassana center?
Ooh, Bodh Gaya.
Okay. Your favorite designer in India, outside India, anybody?
Well, besides you?
Wow. No, seriously. Favorite designer?
Well, actually, there is a young designer who's got no frills that I have worked with. His name is Sankalp. I think from a relative working as a product manager, I have been delighted by how clean a slate he is, how clean a canvas he is, and he imbibes and hears everything and then converts what you're saying into fascinating designs.
Awesome. I've been trying to poach him for some time now. Yeah, but your favorite book?
Oh, that is it's very difficult to answer in one word. But I mean, in one book, can I break it down into two parts?
Yes.
Fiction, my favorite book is The Squirrel and Chipmunk by an author called David Sedaris. And I guess in nonfiction, the one I'm going to call it favorite because that's the book that I have read or reread the most amount of times. That's called Cultivating Inner Peace by Dr. Paul Fleischman.
Okay, cool. So what does design mean to you in 2 words? 2 words.
Awesomeness.
अच्छा, ness तूने एक word बना दिया, ठीक है. What does product mean to you? In one word, maybe, yeah.
Responsibility.
Cool. And this is one of the classic ones. Like, if you are an animal, which one would you be?
Oh, I'd love to be an elephant.
Elephant.
My favorite animal.
Cool. Your favorite quote in any discipline?
Oh, that's a tough one. But I mean, I know what my favorite quote is. I just will not be able to quote it or rather re-quote it. But it's the one by Buddha that mind precedes everything. You become what you think, or you are what you think. It's somewhere around those lines, but that's the essence of it.
Awesome. Okay, now coming to the app world. Any new app that you found out was cool? Any favorite app you have?
Those are difficult questions, Kedar.
Yes, Audiogyan is like that.
I actively imagine a life where I don't have a smartphone with me. So
Okay.
I think
So, okay.
to
Then I'll
to
skip to
to
the next one.
yes, I don't want to commit to an app because they're all pains. I mean, no matter how well developed they are, these days Swiggy has helped me gain a lot of pounds. But no, man,
Okay. So then, any app you hate the most? That's simpler.
no. Why go into love and hate? Let's just get out of that whole system.
All right, all right. Cool. The last one is in the rapid fire round is your favorite line to a product manager. Like either you are
No,
like, yeah, I
I know.
mean,
Are you thinking like an owner? Have an ownership attitude. That is it. Everything else is immaterial.
awesome. That's a very brilliant segue to the main conversation. Thanks for the rapid fire round. Cool. So yeah, Nishant, I wanted to generally ask a few questions around like how do you see product design, how do you see product management, and these days the lines are blurring. So bits about that. But if you want to start by just telling how do you define them, what is your definition of product design, or what is your definition of product management? How do you see them?
So, and I've been thinking about it a lot because the lines are indeed blurring. And to me, the closest simile that comes is sibling rivalry. Product designers and product managers are brothers and sisters, or brothers in the same family. They want the same things, they get the same support, yet they are different. Yet they fight amongst each other, even though they're all aligned towards the same thing. So it's that's the best analogy I can come up with. Is this is sibling rivalry? To me, a PM is, if there is one quality of a PM that differentiates them from pretty much everyone else in the company, is that a PM should have the least amount of skills. They should not be able to do anything well. All they should be able to do well is mirror others. That is like at the utopia, that's at the peak of a PM, is somebody who has got no opinions, no skills, but who's a perfect mirror. And you know how difficult that is, because it's to reflect what an engineer is telling you, what a customer is telling you, what a designer is telling you, without actually adding anything to it or subtracting anything from it, and to kind of make it easy to consume. That's the most phenomenal skill a PM can have. Because then the answers are obvious. Just like when you go stand in front of a mirror, if there's something on your face, the answer is staring at you in the mirror. That's what a PM should do. The people know the answers. Engineers know how to create architecture. Designers know way better than PMs how to wireframe or how to come up with solutions. PMs should get out of the way. And that is the most difficult thing to do. So that's, to me, what a great PM is.
Okay, but I mean, can you give any example that you have seen or read about where PMs sort of trying to influence, or maybe at this utopian level, you have seen somebody actually illustrating those qualities with any
So,
example or
so,
in
so
your
let's
experience?
talk about typically what happens, right? Whether you're in a large company or a small company, there is an initiative, there is project XYZ or problem XYZ that needs to be solved. And out of enthusiasm, the PM will say, I'll write the spec, and here are the wireframes that I've created. Here are the screens, here is the flow. I've spoken to customers, I know this is what we need. At the same time, designers would have also done their own research. They have their own design system. They know what they think is the right way to place UI elements, to create flows, to essentially solve the problem, and to even question the problem. Is this the right problem worth being solved? And so now you have these two competing, relatively young designer and product manager who have solutions, who have partly solved the problem, and probably are not going to be congruent, and they're going to create a little bit of a problem for their manager because they're not necessarily aligned. It happens in different forms all the time. I mean, of course, assuming these are sincere product managers and designers and not just doing their job because paisa milta hai. Does that resonate? Do you see
Yeah,
that happen?
yeah. Obviously, it's a classic case. It's almost everyday case. Yeah.
Because then the PM says the designer is not following the wireframe I created, and the designer says, who the hell asked the PM to create the wireframes? I'm not here just to put lipstick on a pig, or just to put colors and make it pretty. There is a whole method to this. There is a whole research methodology. Here's what I have come up with. And it essentially, what happens is this pressure of a deadline, and one or the other will give in, and kind of that resentment will continue because the lines were never defined well on who should own what.
But have you seen from your experience that this reflecting on all the aspects and being a neutral person to own it. So then how do you own it basically? If you are reflecting, how are you owning?
Well, reflecting doesn't mean that you stop taking actions. There's a big difference.
Hmm.
Reflecting is enabling others to take the right actions instead of dictating the actions to them. So if you think of, we both of us were at BookMyShow, or if you think of any company, right? If let's not
Clear
talk
trip.
about details of
Clear.
well,
Yeah.
let's not go into details of one company, but if there is a problem that is being solved, it has to be a business strategy aligned problem. Should be something that customers really need. But ownership comes in when a product manager tries to get others to solve it in whatever is the best way, but does not give up. When the designer says, couldn't get the right interviews, or the engineer says, this is an old tech stack and we can't solve it the way you've come up with, or when you're trying to deploy it, business says that I couldn't get adoption because this is not, there's no funds to run a campaign, or whatever it is, right? There's always challenges in from the conceptualization all the way till adoption. There are infinite number of things that go wrong, and ownership comes in when you don't take that as an answer. So you're not trying to solve it in a certain way, but you have to get to a solution, and you use creativity, you use all types of skills, from pressurizing to creating deadlines to motivation to chai sutta, whatever it takes to get the job done, because it is your baby. Nobody else in the organization other than maybe the CEO is really looking at the end to end, and it's the PM's job to make sure it's end to end. So there is ownership without trying to influence the actual solution in an ideal world. Many
Hmm.
times your teams are not strong enough and you have to stretch in and come up with a solution, or at least suggest a solution. That's totally fine, but ownership and mirroring can very well go hand in hand.
So is it safe to say, or can I say this, that a PM can be a good designer? Because I've tried sometimes thinking about that. I understand a bit of product. Should I just start from scratch of being a product manager? And I see the crazy stuff that happens at their end, right? From analytics to business pressure to the CEO pressure. It's just crazy. So can a designer become a product manager?
Yeah. Anybody. So that product managers have no skill. They all they have is attributes. If you have the right attributes, I'm not kidding.
Hmm.
If you have an ownership approach, if you have humility, if you're willing to be high energy, to be a mirror, these attributes, you can be. And I have worked with chartered accountants, with doctors, with architects who are PMs. They've got nothing, technical, like digital product PMs, who've got no understanding of what engineering is about, but they can really help engineering teams and design teams and business operations teams and marketing teams to create solutions. Absolutely, you have these attributes. As long as you have these attributes, the other things, whether it's running an analytics report, or whether it's working with data scientists or whoever it is, right? They can all be taught. Like those basic skills can be taught, or somebody else can do it for you. But the core, the ownership attitude, plus these common sense and humility, these things are critical for a PM. They are not so critical for a designer. In fact, if a designer is opinionated or can be a little eccentric, that's totally okay, because what they're coming up with is, creativity. I've worked with very professional designers who have no airs about them, but also, there are also designers who are eccentric, for lack of any other word, and that's okay. That as long as they're delivering on the disruptive new paradigms of interaction or visual design, whatever they're working on, that's totally fine. But if a PM is an eccentric guy or girl, that will create a lot of problems.
Hmm. I would like to add this to the disclaimer also. I mean, yes, it's good, or yes, it's fine if it's eccentric, but it's not like a healthy spot to be in, at least at a leadership level or generally as an individual contributor being a designer, because that has also fueled a different sort of conversations in the design world where the maturity lacks and then it all becomes about design, whereas you are just another cog in the entire system, right? So that's, well, I just want to plug that in from
Yes. I
my
mean, there
side.
is. I don't want to perpetuate the stereotype of a designer diva,
Yeah,
but I was trying to make a
yeah,
point
got
on
it.
the differences. And to your earlier question, Kedar, I mean, background mein, there's a thread going on. Who is the right product manager I can, give you as an example?
Hmm.
And there's actually a wonderful book that can help you understand, or anyone who's listening understand about it. To me, a product manager is an instance of a coach in many ways. And The $1 trillion Coach is a book
Hmm.
about this gentleman called Bill Campbell. That's that, Bill Campbell probably was the world's best product manager slash coach. So, I'd encourage folks to read it.
Yeah, okay, got it. I think I have it. You only gifted me, I guess.
Could be very likely.
Yeah. Cool. But overall, so I mean, the one of the reasons why I wanted to do this episode on product management also, because it's relatively a new phenomena. I mean, we had Make My Trips and we had Book My Shows of the world, but they were still not considered or perceived as product. Like they started off call centers, and then slowly they were still to a certain extent service based, and now with like in the last 10-15 years, you'll see the product word being coming in. So there is a new breed of talent which is being developed to do that. So Nishant, typically we also see like designers falling in love with like the solution rather than the problem itself. Like in that context, what role would a PM play in? Because I've seen a lot of PMs also and a lot of designers also, and for that matter it's a very natural instinct that if you crack something, you're so attached to it, you so love it that you want to see this through. And I have personally faced that many times. So how would you respond to that? Any instance or any reflections on that?
Absolutely. So, just like ownership is a critical contribution of a product manager, protecting the problem is the next contribution. So, not falling in love with problems. I mean, product managers are the last frontier of protecting the right problem to be solved and staying as far away from the solution, whether it's coming from your CEO or founder or from the business priority or whoever it is that has dreamed up this fantastic solution that may or may not work. It's the product manager's job to keep everyone honest about the pros and cons of multiple solutions, to stay honest to the actual problem that you're trying to solve, the impact of the problem on the customer's lives, the reason why you picked that problem over many other problems, and to kind of stay focused on truly solving the problem, not coming up with the most fanciest technology or design driven solution and then kind of superimposing it on everyone.
Yeah, but how do you stay true to that? I mean, like, is it a practice thing? Is it an experience? Are there like any tips and tricks to just stay like focused on the problem? I mean,
Yes.
you bring it
So,
up always in every meeting, you just surface that without being annoying.
yes, you have to remind, like, guys, why are we doing this? And you have to be a little bold. I've seen young product managers really piss off senior leaders by asking why. Like, why are we doing this? What's going to be the impact? Like, why did you prioritize this? And a lot of times, and I've seen folks get annoyed, and initial PMs, when they do this, they feel that they have caused a lot of disruption, and they feel either guilty about it or they start to curb their line of questioning. And to a large extent, this also applies to designers because they are equally curious to understand why. But I can tell you that is the most valuable contribution because it keeps everyone honest. There are so many features that have failed because nobody asked that question why. Everyone said, oh, because ऊपर से आया है or XYZ is passionate or somebody else is the exec sponsor, so we just have to do this. Or in terms of SaaS companies, because this big customer has said it, so we have to do it. Nobody spent the time trying to think through what really is the reason why you're doing this. And sometimes it's okay to do something just because somebody who has a bigger title than yours has demanded it. A lot of times, those who have a bigger title than yours or who are the founder have the right insight and have the right reasons, but it should be articulated. If it's not articulated, if it's swept under the carpet, then it can cause a lot of challenges.
I think one of the attributes then is also articulating the problem statement correctly and permeating it through the organization, because then you are bringing everyone on the same page that, hey, this is the thing which we are solving.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Cool, interesting. And we see a lot of designers also, especially like me. Actually, no, wait, I'll before I jump, I have this classic question which I ask all the PMs when I'm interviewing them, that how do you say no? And as like we are inspired by Jonathan Ives of the world, where they discuss sacrificial no and a lot more jargons there. But it's an important quality to say no, because then you're just overcommitting, or you are just bloating with features, or you're just having a lot of pressure where you don't get time to think also and go deep into the problem. Now, for a company who wants to go wide, yeah, you can say yes to multiple things, but those who want to go deep, you have to say like very bold no's. So any again tricks
Yes.
to say
So
no?
this is now you're asking. Now you're in the right. That's a great question to ask.
Yeah.
And the way to say no is to say and. So in my mind, when I have to tell somebody no, I have to say, okay, so we have to build this, and it has to do what you're saying, and it has to be built with 3 engineers, and it has to be done in 2 weeks. So let's see how that's possible. You have to basically surface the ridiculousness of certain asks without saying no, but by adding all the
Dimensions to
constraints
it.
that are
Yeah.
there that you're facing, so that you're not making the call of saying, when you're saying no, you've made the decision on what is more important and what is less important to yourself. When you're saying and you're listing everything that's going on, you're getting everybody else to look at the ridiculousness or the impossibility of the situation, and you're helping everyone understand all the constraints so that collectively you can come to what makes sense. And sometimes you decide to go with the ridiculous, but it's now a very conscious, deliberate choice because you've made the consequences very clear to everyone. So don't say no, say and. And if you can
Really?
remember it, it works wonders. In any meeting, you can politely say, oh, so we have to build this, and by tomorrow also do this, and also have this. So the ridiculousness becomes very apparent.
Wow. That's like $1 million answer for me. Awesome. I'll try and see how can I I can incorporate.
Well, I'm definitely oversimplifying it, but you see the point, right? You can deliver it in many ways, but when your team is already stretched, when the engineering team wants to work on the technical debt, but somebody else wants a feature for a customer, and there are only one pod available to do both, so you say, okay, we'll do this, and we'll not work weekends, and we will not sleep, and we will still deliver high quality, and it'll still be on time. It's not going to happen. So you help prioritize. I mean, PMs have to help prioritize, but by just saying no, you build your ego, you create enemies, and you create a lot of bad blood by helping those. Because people who are asking for features are coming with very valid reasons, or who are asking for solutions. You just have to get them to the same page.
Got it. Got it. Cool. So priority ke upar, I'll have the last question, but just before that, we see a lot of designers. At least I have seen, and in fact, they're like me as well, who have over years like gained some experience and talk the same language as the product does. Right. In fact, I have been telling my designers to talk the language of engineers, because that's where the if they understand what is position absolute and position relative, and what is a bottom sheet or what is a native model window, I think the conversation becomes smoother, right? So
Yeah.
again, any is there a product language which designers can probably imbibe and talk to product folks, and vice versa, to just be on the same page?
I I can't think of anything. See, uh, the ideal product language would be whatever language you speak, right? So PM should be able to connect with designers when they're talking about redlining or bottom sheet or whatever it is, and with engineers when they're talking about performance constraints or threads or whatever it is, right? I mean, because you're as close to being neutral as possible. So
No, so what I meant was sharing the same vocabulary in a sense. A designer maybe too and that's why the lines of blurring is what I'm struggling with. So a
yeah,
designer might have like a more advanced thought process of what is closer to the thumb, what is accessible, bunch of stuff in the design world, color theory, and so on and so forth. Whereas the PMs is working with matrix and what is the use cases. So these are keywords, right? Which if I interpret correctly, I'll be able to solve. If those are sort of not in the dictionary itself or in the mental model itself, then you're now these days OKR as a word is coming in. So that's what I'm talking about. Is there anything like that which helps to bridge the gap between a designer and a product person?
I think the any functional role, whether it's a designer or an engineer or a marketer or an operations guy or whoever, as long as they're doing their job well using their language and their constraints and really being true to whatever is their functional role, that's great. Now, if there is somebody who wants to switch over from a functional role, from a designer to a PM, they should learn to let go of their jargon as opposed to learn a new jargon. So there isn't really a PM vocabulary as much as there is functional vocabulary. And if you're blurring the line between a designer to a PM, reduce the amount of design specific terms or language, and that will help bridge the gap and that will help you transition if you want to. But why would a designer ever want to be a PM? Makes no
I don't know.
sense.
I don't know. Yeah.
I want to be a designer in my next life. I wish I had those skills in this life. But
Hmm. Cool. I think the last question which I have is any best practices, any frameworks that you follow to bring in, because say like jobs to be done kind of a framework, or this RISE framework, all these just puts things very objectively. So if you have to build a very, I don't know whether it's a word also, like a product centric company culture, do you have any experience about using these frameworks much more efficiently, or at which stage of the company these would be helpful, and any frameworks that you would recommend?
that's a tough question. It's got too many things going on in it. Let me break it down.
Sure.
You're talking about building a company culture that's product centric. But culture as such also keeps on evolving, right? So when you are a startup and there are 6 or 7 of you in a room, that culture needs nothing. It's already there. It's however you work. But when you become 50 or 100, then yes, you have to start investing in it. And when you are even bigger, you're 1,000 or multiple countries, it's taken a life of its own. To be able to influence that by just a framework is something that I haven't done, or I don't know how it can be done. But I think if somebody was to ask me this question in terms of I have to build this in my company, my advice would be culture starts with each individual. It's everyone's responsibility. And most companies have a certain ethos, a certain set of values that they want to stay true to. And as long as every individual is really trying to do that in whatever role that is. So if it's a company that is customer centric and that's the culture that everyone wants to build, then in every function, if every individual truly tries to understand what the customer's pain they're trying to solve, don't think about I will influence XYZ and build a culture because I'm doing my job, they are not doing, I have to influence them. As long as you can limit it to I really want to understand and really solve the customer's problem or really truly understand what the customer needs. And if I can model it just within whatever I do, whether I'm a designer or a copywriter or whatever functional role I'm doing, I think that more than any framework will build that culture. Now, it's up to the leaders of the company to make sure that they define only 2 or 3 things. I mean, you can't be everything. Most company values are a long list and people can't remember most of them. So it kind of fails, right? It defeats the purpose. But if you have a few things and one of them is being customer centric, then every single person in whatever they do have to truly embody that. And once you do that, then the culture will evolve. If you say आज का latest ये framework है and let's do this or this workshop or this 5 color something or whatever else some MBA has come up with, it's not really going to work. I mean, genuinely, if you want to build it, if you want to have people giving lip service to something, yes, for some time it'll have a value, it'll fade away, and then the next guy will come with the next framework. But if you genuinely want to build a customer centric culture, then it has to be everyone's responsibility. You can't leave it on a framework.
But for priority, you need something, right? Some.
Priority, absolutely.
Yeah.
Priority, the RISE kind of frameworks work really well on priority, but that has to be driven by business. Uh, there's always this debate between are you a product-led company or are you a business-led company? And there are those who say, oh, product comes first, and because we have made such a kick-ass product, business and revenue and other things will follow. And like a Google is a great example of that, right? You build a search engine with no monetization initially, and then eventually you figure out how to do it, or maybe you already had it. But in my opinion, business strategy precedes product strategy. Business strategy should be supported by product. It can even be almost driven by a product. What can you build or which problems you can solve? But prioritization is business first. That's the only sustainable way, in my
Hmm.
opinion.
Quite interesting. Yeah, there are like some gems here.
But
Cool.
tell me, Kedar, I have a
Ah,
question for you.
yes, please.
As a design leader,
Yeah.
What type of product managers have you enjoyed working with, and what attributes of them do you really kind of benefit from?
I mean, the product managers whom I've worked with is I think they show 2 to 3 attributes or skills or whatever we call it. But one is generally shielding or guarding what we are building at the moment, right? For example, there could be 10 business priorities, and the product manager is probably able to distill them into 2 to 3 which really matter to the user, or maybe all of them matter, but then they are coming in a priority, right? So those PMs who have guarded that is one trait which I've enjoyed working with. And second, I would say is who have articulated the problem very nicely, who are working along with the designers. Actually, what you said is what have happened to work with few of the PMs who have done that well. So that's why we're not going for that one solution or 2 solutions. In fact, I've been recently saying a lot about this. Like, let's come up with like 10 solutions for the same problem and then figure out which has a better high impact and low effort kind of a model. So those are the 2 things which I think I gather right now.
Well, that definitely helps me. I'll make sure I'll ask my teams to do that.
Awesome. Cool. I think Nishant, do you want to add anything to like or any tip, advice, suggestions to upcoming budding PMs if they are listening?
Not, maybe a warning that you don't know what you're getting into. A long career as a PM or a PM leader is a difficult one because you get blamed for a lot of things that you have no control over. So it sounds glamorous initially that you are the CEO of a product or all sorts of things that people make up. The reality is you get to do a lot of work that you have little control over, and you get blamed for a lot of things that you can't really solve. It's rewarding for a certain type of people who are okay with a lot of ambiguity, who are okay with a lot of confusion, and who still like helping others, because at the end of the day that's what a PM is doing. When I said a PM doesn't have a core skill set, that is because they're not really adding direct value in a functional way. They're adding value indirectly. So if you're willing to help, if you have that attribute, and if you're willing to lead people who don't know what they are doing in the larger scheme of things, then this is a good role for you.
Right. Thank you. On that note, we'll end this. Thanks, Nishant, for giving your time. It was wonderful talking to you.
Thanks for having me here, Kedar.
Awesome. That's it. And that's it from today's Gyan session. For show notes and more Gyan, visit audiogyan.com. If you like this podcast, please don't forget to check our other interesting podcast on IVM Network. You can listen to us on IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or any of your favorite podcasting apps. To stay tuned, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at IVM Podcast. And if you wish to connect with me, I am at Audiogyan Moments on Instagram. Until then, take care.
Hello! It's been a great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On This Round is on Me, Gauri is joined by Shweta Nanda. They talk about the financial independence and how it is to be a woman entrepreneur. On Anish Thing, Anish welcomes ultra-marathon runner Shivani Gharat. Shivani shares her journey of how she ran her first marathon, the mindset of a runner, and what it actually takes to run a full marathon. On Cock and Bull, Cyrus, Naveen, Akash and Shreyas talk about the Korean band BTS serving in the military and its repercussions. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita discuss Wing Greens and their latest acquisitions and about the Indian sexual wellness market. And on Shunyavan, Sheila Datya is joined by Dinika Bhatia, CEO and founder of Nuttigrities. They talk about coming from a business family and Dinika's journey in creating healthy and guilt-free snacking. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have some exciting new merch out there for you. Also, do follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And do remember to spread the word about these shows and any other shows you might be listening to. Appreciate them, rate them, and review them wherever you are listening to them. You can also check out all our other shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week: Volvo XC40 Recharge, Bumble, Heads Up for Tails, Kotak Privy League Program, and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thanks, guys. Without you, this would not be possible.
Do you often find yourself surrounded by conversations about Web3, blockchain, NFTs, DAOs? What are these terms and how do they affect our future on the internet? So many questions, but don't worry, we've got answers to all your questions. Hi, I'm Eklavya Bhattacharya, and on our show Future Proofing, we try to decode the impact of these future technologies on various industries with experts and tech enthusiasts. Tune into new episodes coming out every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app and the website, or wherever you get your podcasts from.